International transformation and success coach Myrna Morris-Young delivers life-changing strategies as the host of the Mindset Transformation radio show and podcast. Each show gives you practical tips on living your best life now by changing your mindset to change your life. I am grateful that you have tuned in today from all over the world. I believe that the Spirit of God led you here so that you can receive insight, revelation, and knowledge to see the next step in front of you as God reveals His purpose and destiny in your life. And now, here's Coach Myrna.
Welcome to the Mindset Transformation radio show and podcast with Coach Myrna. I am your most gracious host, and today we have with us a treat. Miss Lauridge, Laurae, is going to be talking to us today about sex. And really, what we're going to be talking about is not so much the act of sex, but we're going to be looking at it from the energy that is around the sexual act, spirited energy exchange. So buckle your seatbelts and stay tuned because we're going to be having a really exciting talk today. Now, in keeping with our previous themes, whenever I have a guest on the show, I try to give a tip of the week that coincides with our topic. So, as I was researching, I came across this information, and I thought that it was actually a little new to me because I've never heard it quite this way before. So, anybody that wants to comment, I love a good dialogue. You can send me a note on this and tell me how wrong I am or whatever. So here goes. We are going to talk today about the story of the tree of life and the tree of knowledge as found in the book of Genesis. Now, when God placed Adam in the Garden of Eden, He made him in His own image, and that is both male and female, because God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's one and the same. Then God decided to separate the male and the female so that they can evolve separately. So He took a rib out of the man and He called her woman. But He made it so that neither the man or the woman can be complete without the union of the two souls through the sexual energy of sex. So that's where this energy comes into play. The only way for two souls, man and a woman, to create is by coming together with the force of the universal sexual energy. But let's get back to the instructions God gave Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. He told them that everything in the Garden of Eden could be consumed except the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge is a symbol for the knowledge of sex. So when Satan tempted Eve with the knowledge that she surely would not die if she partook with the tree of knowledge or from the tree of knowledge, he was telling the truth. You see, she wouldn't die physically, but she did die, and we all did, spiritually. Because by partaking of the tree of knowledge without the guidance of God, Eve brought pain and suffering into the world. There's nothing more beautiful and creative than sex with your spouse. That is how God intended it. This joining together is the most powerful energy and vibration in the universe. And that's why it destroys. It is often the tool that Satan uses to steal, kill, and destroy. So today, Lorae is going to teach us how to use the energy of sex, spirited energy exchange, in your marital relationship. So don't throw me any darts. And that's the only way that you can get close to God and get back into the Garden of Eden. And that is through the sexual union of the soul of the man and the wife. You can't get back as a single person. So, Laurae, welcome to our show. You can either agree or dispute my tip of the week, but we'll get into that a little later. Welcome.
Thank you, Myrna. I was listening very intently to this piece that you shared with your audience, and there's some parts I agree, and some parts that I might elaborate and throw my little perspective in.
Sure, no problem. Like I said, I love a good dialogue. I thought it was perfect because, according to the research, and we're digressing a little bit here, but according to research, that most of the men of God have always practiced chastity because it's one of the ways to spill your energy and all these type of things. And we all know that, if we look at all the great leaders, then sex is usually what brings them down. So that's, to me, I look at some data and I thought that this was perfect. But, hey, my pastor might disagree or some other people might disagree. But I kind of like that, so I went with it. So, but let's tell you a little bit more of Laurae, and then we'll have her share with us how, about this particular energy. Now, Laurae is a sacred sexuality educator who coaches men, women, and couples to be enlightened lovers. Her method is to blend ancient holistic practices like Tantra and Taoism with the latest Western medical and scientific discoveries in psychology, health, and sex. And she does it in a way that's practical, fun, and extraordinarily easy. According to Laurae, mastering sexuality is like mastering a sport. You need to learn from the experts, have a certain amount of passion and dedication, and create an environment of fun whenever you practice. She teaches men and women how to relax and feel at ease with their bodies, communicate authentically, and develop mastery over their own sexual responses. In order to be able to map, enjoy, and navigate the exotic and foreign landscape of their partner's body. As an advocate for holistic sexuality, Laurae conducts private sessions for individuals and couples, does workshops, public speaking, and media events on tantric, sacred sexuality education. Among her many certifications and trainings, Laurae is a sexological body worker through the Institute for the Advanced Studies of Human Sexuality. She's a certified tantric counselor, a mind sound teacher, and graduate of Margaret Anand's Skydancing Tantra Facilitator training. She's also a member of the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, also known as AASECT, a chartered member of the Association of Sexual Energy Professionals, known as ASEP, and she regularly attends trainings and conferences to keep current with the latest research and information in the realm of body, mind, and spirit. Wow. Now, here is somebody that is schooled and has infinite knowledge on sex and sexual energy. So once again, Laurae, welcome to the Mindset Transformations radio show. Transform our minds, please.
Thank you, Myrna. So let's kind of go back to your
tip of the week
initial piece that you were talking about. I believe that yes, when a couple comes together, and this is where the sacred or the spiritual aspect comes in. When there's consciousness involved, there's a blending and a union of spirits and souls, and that is a trigger or activation to reawaken your connection with the divine, with God.
Awesome. Well, that's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
so I'm
good.
in total agreement with you.
All right, good.
My however is a lot of people, because you talked about the ignorance, right, that are just functioning on biology. And so there's this primal, instinctive, I call it our hardwired program within us to procreate, which is how we, make another form, right? We have through the genetics and things, there's a child created through this union. But that child can be created through any type of circumstance. It can be through violence, right? Rape. Yeah. It can be made through love, and it can be just made through oops, right? That oops moment. Correct?
Yeah, right.
Or pressure, because a lot of women are having infertility issues these days, and so there's this pressure to have a child, but the man is like the sperm donor, and she's like, okay, I'm ovulating now we have to have sex. So there is no pleasure, and there's no, like I said, this higher aspect, and imagine the environment that you're creating. The child is being created in this energy of pressure, right? To be formed. Yeah. And who wants to come into the world that way? It's tough enough here, correct?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that aspect I agree. I also want to add something else, is that these yogic teachings and the Eastern philosophies have this concept that we have both polarities within us. So there's many people who, so you said, refer to like pastors or ministers or clergy who choose not to become sexual.
Right.
And there's this, the Eastern practices, I know that in Buddhism, the monks will learn how to transmute that sexual urge.
Energy, right.
Energy, right. And so they're not cutting it off. I was brought up Catholic, and there's this difference, which is celibacy, which is the denial of the sexual energy, which, as people may know, there's how it shows up in kind of convoluted or very dark ways.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I've also I've also researched sexual transmutation and how they practice. But what it also says is, now these monks, there's pretty good conversation here, so let's stick with it for a minute. Sure. The monks and the people, the masters that practice abstinence, because yes, they're transmuting that energy in creative forces, and they're transmuting that energy for good. But the Bible also says that a man, a regular, normal mortal, that can't do that, then the Bible says it's better for you to marry than burn, because that energy, it has to have an outlet somewhere. So if you decide that you're not going to have sex because you're not married or whatever, then that energy, if you don't learn to transmute it, it comes out in dark places. And actually, they're saying, when I was doing my research, it actually gave an example of the priests, because the priests, in the Catholic world, didn't have a proper outlet for it, which is why they had all these scandals. Right. So, all right. I want to get into all the things you need to share, so we're going to put a pin in that. And I'm going to ask you how you became interested in Tantric Sacred Sexuality. What was your path to this knowledge?
I think, just to make it really brief, growing up as a child, I was interested in these alternative things. So I had a girlfriend whose parents wouldn't let her watch TV many years ago, and so we would go to the library. It was okay for us, and we went to the library alone. We walked. There was nobody to what interests you. So at that time, psychic phenomena was coming out. ESP, things on philosophy. I was reading stories like Frankenstein and Dracula and, those kinds of things. So I was always interested in metaphysics, and I wondered, and I recall as a child looking up at the stars and going like, I don't belong here. I belong up there.
Wow.
Why am I here? What am I, as a child, and so that's been part of my life from as long as I can remember, this metaphysical thing. What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I here? Am I here to contribute something? And then I was quickly brought up Catholic, not really given any kind of information, but I didn't really receive any messages, maybe they were unconscious or subtle, around shaming and guilt and things. But that still was kind of in my sphere. So, and I had gone to parochial school 12 years and hadn't really dated. So when I became active in college, there was a group that after class group that I was up for learning communication, and one of the guys in there that was where I started to date, and he was a little bit older than I was. So when we were dating, he was introducing me things to me. The other thing was I grew up with all sisters, so once we kind of started to play around and touch bodies and things, and I saw his body, I'm like, what is I've never seen a penis before. You want me to touch that? You want me to do something with my mouth on that? I don't know. It looks weird. And he was very patient, and he taught me, and then I started to read books. And it was a lot of, I'd go to the library, and there was books on marital relations and what you would do and things. So in one sense, and there was a point where I decided, who I decided to lose my virginity to. I was in a few-month relationship, but I, again, thinking this gentleman was older, this guy was older than I was, and I would learn something. And we had great makeout sessions and, hugging and holding and kissing and all the leading up to, but I would always stop. So the time when I said, I want to do this with you, I'm making a conscious decision, it was like, that's it? I didn't really feel anything. So more exploration, more research, more reading. And
you're probably talking to lots of young girls that says, yeah, is this what it's about? I mean, yeah, because go ahead.
So the thing is, so kind of make points, I think it's really important for women to understand their bodies, and I really hadn't. And one of the books that I had gotten was, my aunt had it, was called The Cosmopolitan Woman's Guide to Sex. I don't even know if it still exists, but it had, and now there's more.
That's where the Cosmopolitan magazine came from, because that's all they talk about in that magazine.
Well, there was probably an offshoot, from a lot of the articles or things, but they had, this is what your body looks like. These are the body parts. This is what your genitals look like. This is where your clitoris is. This is your labia. This is your inner labia. And, if you're interested in having an orgasm, this is what you do, clitoral stimulation. So once I learned how, and sometimes women, learn how they're touching their bodies, they're very curious, but I had never thought about my body being a place for pleasure, that there was something that could feel good. So once I learned about, I call it the new sex positive term, self-pleasuring, as opposed to the sex-negative term masturbation. Once I learned how to self-pleasure, I was giving myself something, a gift.
Okay.
And then when I was with partners, I was able to have that little bit deeper orgasmic experience. Okay. And it was where, and there's this fallacy that, women should be able to orgasm through penetration, and I think the stats that I read is about there's not exact numbers, but I think about only 30% of women may actually orgasm.
That's actually the number I have. I was just checking you. Yeah, well, that is actually a physical impediment. It's right. Yes, it's.
So there's.
I don't think they can change that. That's just how they're. It's
wired.
How their bodies are wired. Right.
And for all the sex that I've had in my life, I would say that I could count on one hand the number of vaginal orgasms I've had.
Right. Okay.
So
so you're not wired that way then, huh?
No.
Okay.
But I do ejaculate, which is something else. We could do a whole show on female ejaculation, if you want to have me back. But so I'll just kind of branch off a little sec. So, I'm very comfortable talking about sex, but I have clients coming to me and it's like, oh, I feel really weird. And so, again, part of what I do is to normalize this natural behavior, and this expression of intimacy and love between two people, or even love with yourself. And going back to the Bible, Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how many people are practicing self-love? And I'm not talking about the self-pleasuring part, but, how we are kind to ourselves, what we do to replenish and to restore ourselves in this high-pressure world, right?
Right.
And we're in a world
of almost every week on my show. It's like
interesting, isn't that?
I should rename the show because everybody is talking about loving of self first before you can do anything, right? So,
and here is again in a different way. So, I think a lot of another offshoot, people come into a relationship because they want the other person to complete them.
Right.
My thought is that you have to kind of work on your own stuff, deal with your own sheet, and also be with a partner who is, it's not two halves coming to be a whole, you're two
complete
as much
people.
As you people coming into a relationship to build something even better and stronger, which is a third, which is your blended relationship, then in connection with the spirit or divine.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So I'm gathering that, you took us on a journey on how you became interested in sexuality and how you decided to make it your expertise. So I get that. I guess very comfortable with talking about sex. It's really interesting, but that, we all talk about, I just finished reading this book, Conversations with God. And there was a whole section. Isn't that a beautiful book? And there's a whole section in there about how nobody, now parents don't want to have the conversation, how it's a dirty word, and girls when they come into their sexuality. I don't think he talked with boys very much, but girls when they come into the sexuality, how everybody tells them it's terrible and they shouldn't be sexual beings, and and then we have this negative spin on it and all that. So I'm coming into a lot of knowledge on this, and maybe God wants me to do something with it because I am in an influential position. So that's awesome. Even the way that we connected, and for me to have you in the show. So. I have always worked with, in fact, one of the other books, one of my most favorite books is Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And there's a whole section in there about sexual energy and sexual transmutation because he's saying that energy is how you create. And he's talking about create riches, right? He's saying that, if a man... And again, one section talks about women specifically and the other talks about men. But he talked about most of the CEOs or most of the men that have achieved greatness in this world is because they had the sexual energy either from their spouse or the other woman or they've learned to transmute that energy to create something big. So, it's and that's why, we're talking about spirited energy exchange. It's not the act, it's not the biology, it's the force, and it's one of the most powerful forces, it is the most powerful force in the universe.
That's
and we
correct.
all should learn how to use it to create whether it's beauty with our spouses, write books, become presidents, or whatever you want to use it to, get, something out of this life and this soul is what we use. So, but let's take a quick station break, and we'll be right back with more of this interesting conversation. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Mindset Transformations Radio Show with your host, Coach Myrna. Do you feel the need to do more with your life? Are limiting beliefs holding you back from true success? Enjoy a unique blend of interviews, discussions, and transformation coaching in every show. Get the tools for success. The Mindset Transformation Radio Show with your host, Coach Myrna.
Welcome back to the Mindset Transformation Radio Show. I'm your host, Coach Myrna, and today we are speaking to sexuality coach, Miss Lorae. And I'm not going to bother saying her last name because I don't want to mess it up. But what we've been talking about in our first session is being comfortable with your body, understanding that sex is more than the biology of it. It's the energy, and it is the way to contact the divine, get back into the Garden of Eden, or just access the power of the universe. So as we come into our second segment, I want to ask Laurae, what is sacred sexuality, and how is it different from biological sex?
Sure. So this is just my definition, and maybe if you talk to other people in this field or people who are in advertising tantric practice and things, everyone will have their own kind of spin. But I really believe that, as I said, regular sex is just functioning on one level, and I'll explain it quickly so people can get an idea. There's an Android commercial where you see this gentleman playing a piano, and it's a big, huge, intense, concerto thingy, and he's using all the keys, and it's very, very powerful. Then he turns around, and he's playing on the piano that has only one note. So that's why I explain what biological sex is. It's just one note or one dimension.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas with sacred sexuality, it has many nuances and variances and subtleties, and you have choices as to its expression. It can be the physical, it can be the emotional, it can be the psychological, it can be the spiritual, it can be a combination of all of these or any kind of blend of these pieces. And so that's, and when you have this elevation and choice, you have more options. And when you have more options, you have more consciousness involved. So that's the difference between, as I spoke a little bit earlier, reference, people have sex. It's unconscious. There's a lot of, with the younger generation, they're having sex when they're drunk. How conscious is that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Or they're acting out then from that urge because they're drunk, and there's this element of consent, or somebody didn't consent, so then it gets into a violence or a rape, right? A non-consensual act. So sacred sexuality is this higher level of engaging with also yourself. As I mentioned before, you can do self-pleasuring and be cycling this energy and doing something that's positive for your body, which is an alchemical process, or it can be used in relationship to deepen your connection with your partner on that mind, body, spirit level.
So is that the same as tantric sex, or there's a different word for it, or?
Yes, and so I think I want to make it more neutral, so I say sacred sexuality. So yes, this could be tantric sex.
Okay.
And tantra can also be practiced. There's two paths. One is called the white path, and one is the red path. And then we have kind of like a blended of those two in the West, because we like to change things up. So the white path is very meditational. It's devotional. It's the cultivation of energy without any kind of sexual activity engaged. And that's probably what the Buddhist monks are doing. Whereas the red path is using life experience. But you have to be very conscious and aware of every act that you do in life. So it could be sex. It could be eating. In India, they have something called these Maituna rituals where because of the caste system, you would not engage with someone outside of your level. But in these Maituna rituals, to break that taboo, you would have somebody from a higher caste, which is like the Brahmin, maybe interact or engage or even be sexual with someone from the untouchable caste.
All right. Now, I touched briefly on this again in my research, and I don't remember much about it other than the fact that someone said there was 3, white, red, and black is one you shouldn't do.
I'm
You're
not familiar with the black. The black may involve harnessing the sexual energy for maybe a negative effect.
Okay.
Because you said you talked about being creative energy, so it could be energy that you would harness to harm someone.
Ah, okay. All right. Right. Okay. All right. So, I remember them saying that that's a bad one. Okay. So the sacred sexuality is part of tantric, but it's not exactly it, right?
Right. So for people who don't really want to get into more of the tantric practices or things, and there can be more esoteric and more philosophical things involved, I try to keep it a little bit more simple.
Okay.
The KISS principle.
Right. And of course, we can use that term to talk about a man and wife in
in their
communicating on all their levels, right? Yeah. which is basically what happens in a marital relationship. You're communicating on all your levels. Awesome. All right. So, how important would this sacred sexuality be in a marital relationship?
I'm going to take a pause here because it's like, duh, no brainer. Do you want to be better? Do you want to be a better lover? Do you want to have a better connection with your partner? Or do you want to have this expressed in your relationships with your family, in your community, in your social circles, in your work environment? This energy is something that as I was talking about earlier, can create alchemical shifts in your body for better health and better psychology. How many people are on antidepressant medication, right?
Right. Okay.
How many people are
That's awesome. Okay.
drained when they come back? They're stressed. There's so many stress-related illnesses in our society. Would you agree with that?
Well, of course.
So
But I think even biological sex release stress, doesn't it?
It can, but it's people are operating from a place of deficit when they do the biological sex. So what do women complain of? Oh, my wife, we have sex and then my husband falls asleep and he starts snoring, and I'm kind of left here satisfied, not satisfied.
Right.
I hear that a lot.
Yes, of course.
And that's kind of the general gross generalization, but it does happen. So when you have not built this life force, it's called prana or chi in the Eastern worlds. How I explain it is that, we can relate to a cell phone. You plug your cell phone in at overnight, you wake up, the light's green, right? Throughout the day, you're talking on it, you see it go to yellow, and then you check your battery, and then it's like almost, it might give you a little indicator going from yellow to red. And then when it's red, you have no charge. You can't talk on your phone. Our bodies are very similar. We need this chi or prana, I say, it's equivalent to grace. It is bringing God's grace into your soul. And that soul is connected to the human form. And so that soul brings energy and health to the body. When you're depleted of this grace or chi or prana, your body suffers. So sex is one way, or the sacred sexual act is one way to cultivate it. Getting enough sleep is another way to cultivate it. Eating healthy food, drinking pure water, being out in nature are ways to build this life force. Doing practices like Qigong or Tai Chi or the yoga were ways that were discovered thousands of years ago to help rekindle this life force.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be done many ways. Or it can. So if you have the more ways that you do it, the healthier you're going to be. The more mentally sharp you're going to be. The more balanced you're going to be psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to add to your longevity. You're going to look younger.
Yes.
So these are ways, and I had that for one of my things, like how can you use this energy to be healthy and stuff? Well,
yes.
This consciousness of understanding this higher action of taking sex, like I said, that's not something to drain you, but it's something that you can restore. It restores you. It rejuvenates you. It can even heal you.
Of course.
Is something that's been kind of kept from us. So I'm here on, this is my mission, is to awaken people's consciousness around sacred sexuality.
Yes, yes. You awakened my consciousness for sure.
Thank you.
That's awesome. All right. So let's talk about orgasm for a minute. So can you explain the difference between an orgasm, multiple orgasms, a full-body orgasm, and is it different from the orgasm created in tantric massage or sacred sex, I guess?
Okay. And I just kind of glanced, and I should have put another preface to this question. So in my Tantra training, my teacher had a background in philosophy, and she talked about orgasmic states. So there's the orgasmic states are emotional expressive states. Okay. When we laugh, have you ever laughed in a crowd and somebody's telling a joke, or you're at a comedy club and you go, by the time you leave, like, oh, my stomach's so sore, right? Mm-hmm. Your body is shaking. Your body is releasing energy, correct? Mm-hmm. When you're sad, let's say someone passes and you're really affected. You're crying and you're heaving, and it's an orgasmic release. It's an energy release. Fear, quaking in your boots, orgasmic release. Anger, rage, people are like, right? Their body's shaking. Intensive orgasmic releases. And we can have those for long periods of time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
The sexual orgasm. What?
I said, I don't know about long, but more than a minute.
Right. I mean, I've cried. When my dad died, my kitties died. I was crying, for days, and
right.
Or like I said, laughing and But anyway, so the body can have these orgasmic releases. The sexual orgasm for most people is a matter of seconds, correct? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's been validated through scientific research. The tantric orgasm is the ability to tap into this orgasmic energy, have it move through the physical body, and link up to those other longer, extended orgasmic states that I talked about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have the biological orgasm, which is maybe for some people 10 seconds. Some women and men can have this multiple orgasm, which is this kind of build up neurologically through the genitalia, move through the nervous system, and then there's like a wave process. Another build up, and there's another release, and the body waves, right? The full body orgasm is where as it explains, it's not genitally focused. It's something that is expressed throughout. You feel these pulsations. You feel this explosion from head to toe.
Wow.
And a lot of people haven't had those two of them. And the orgasm in the tantric massage, you can have orgasm. Now we're talking about this energy release through a build-up through breath work or pranayama, which is a yogic word, through the building up of energy in the pelvis. So I call it like this fire that we're creating there through Kegel exercises, or in yoga it's called doing the root lock or the Mula Bandha. And once there's a saturation of the energy in the physical body, you will have this release. And you'll feel the body move in little wave forms if you are relaxed. So part of this is getting the mind out of the experience, letting go. So that's where a lot of the healing around guilt and shame comes in, because those are blocks to the ability to tune in and to tap into this energy. So a tantric orgasm for me is something that's full body. It can be independent of any type of genital or sexual stimulation, and it's something that I can share with my partner through just breathing with him. And we're building this cycle of energy, because each one of us has an energy field around us. In these Eastern practices, they're called subtle bodies. And so when you match your breath, so this is one of the most basic Tantric 101 practices, connected breathing. So I like to use the breath work that comes from my Skydancing Tantra practice, which is we breathe through the mouth. And a lot of people hypoventilate, which means they underbreathe. So it's an easy way to engage both the upper part of the body, which is your sympathetic response, and connect it to your relaxation response, which is down into the belly. So how this, if you want, I can take you through it.
All right, well, yeah, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come right back, and then you can show us how to do that. That's awesome.
Excellent.
Now, I love this last segment, because I'm like, wow, never heard that before. All right. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. Stay tuned. We're going to take a quick station break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Mindset Transformation Radio Show. I'm your host, Coach Myrna, and today we're speaking to sexuality coach, Miss Lorae Lauridge. And before we took the break, Lorae was going to give us an exercise of how we can tap into the energy of our partner. So, Lorae, you have the floor. Go right ahead.
Oh, great. This breathing is so easy. As I said, a lot of people underbreathe. So if you have any sinus congestion or a cold or something like that, any kind of lung problems, this is really going to be helpful. I wouldn't breathe through this way all the time, but for this, it's called the charging breath, and it's also called the balancing breath, because we're bringing in this life force, this energy, this grace into our physical and spiritual bodies, and we're also balancing our nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic responses. So if you've ever sipped in a drink through a straw, that's how we're going to be breathing in, taking in the air through the mouth. So the lips are a little pursed. We're going to maybe do it for inhalation for a 4 or 5 count. We're going to suspend the breath. And just because I want to hear everybody breathe, we're going to also make sound, because sounds get us out of our left brain, which is what we're doing because you're listening to the talk. But we want to be a little bit more physically engaged, and that's what sounds do. They're nonverbal communication, but they also connect you back to the body. So we're going to add sounds, and our first sound is
we're going to make sounds, right?
Yeah. So I'll demo it, a couple of the breaths, and then if you like, you can join me. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to inhale. So if you hear that little sipping, and we're going to pause. And now my first sound is going to be with a little pause, and then just repeat. Follow the breath in. Pause. Exhale. And then third breath. Notice as the air flows into the body, fills the lungs, expands the belly, exhaling, that life force, that grace from God, filling every cell and part of you. Next breath. More energy, more life. Feel the tension release. Exhaling, the pleasure of letting go. Next breath. Exhaling. Now I'll introduce the next sound, which is the on the exhalation. Vibrates around the heart center. So we're activating heart energy and all the things connected with love. The belly sound on the exhalation. So we'll inhale. Exhale with a nice yummy It's melty, flowy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like I like something, right? I said,
It's and it allows us to release. We have a lot of held unconscious tension in our bodies. So when you make these sounds, you're creating vibrations through your nervous system. And what does vibrations do? Like when they want to break up the cement on the street, they have a jackhammer to right? Mm-hmm. That vibration breaks up the concrete. The vibrations of the sounds not only keeps you out of your brain thinking process, but it gets you connected to the body and tells the body to release unconscious tension. And it can sound good, right? It's an indirect way to influence your partner's pleasure, right? If I'm going,
Yeah, I know. It sounds like I like you.
It's
yummy,
contagious.
Yummy.
Yes, it is. Correct. So I tell men it's the lazy man's way to turn on your partner in bed. Share with her your pleasure through sounds. Mm-hmm. And then the third sound on the exhalation is the ooh sound. So that works on opening up the sex center, the genitals.
Okay.
And as practice, when I'm in session with clients, I have these my clients make a sound with every breath, just so they get that under their belt, so they can feel comfortable making the sounds. But in the bedroom, when you're with your partner, it allows more spontaneity to happen, so that your expression is authentic. But I can tell the shift when my clients go from the practice sounds to when they're really letting out a feeling, that an emotion that's connected to that sound. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but how is the partners doing it? Are they sitting in a yoga pose, or they're laying down when you're making these sounds?
Okay, so this is where we can bring it into what I call spooning or this melting hug. Couples in the bedroom, I hear time and time again, we're too stressed to make love, or I'm too tired. So I said, do this melting hug. When you breathe together, your energy fields are merging, because the breath is a way to start to create a union of the non-physical body, your energy bodies. So I don't know if you felt when you were breathing together, if we felt a little bit more connected?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Isn't that interesting?
And I am going to try that.
So when you're in the bedroom and spooning is front to back, and you're kind of a little, knees are up, so it's a little semi-fetal position.
Right.
And it allows the body to move. So if you notice, as you're breathing this way, lungs expand, belly kind of inflates, correct? Mm-hmm. And it causes the spine to arch slightly. And as you exhale, those muscles contract.
And your partner, you can feel your partner's breath on their belly.
That's
when you
on
hold
your
them,
back,
and
right?
you can feel it on your back, right? Yes.
So it's kind of sexy. And as you relax, you start to build more energy. As you build energy and you're relaxed, you start to feel more. When you feel more, the senses are heightened, and then you can add the touch. Says, oh, I like your hand on my heart. Oh, I just noticed your hand was, moving down my body. I really enjoyed that. Oh, I'm kind of like wanting to move my hips a little bit more because breathing. I'm letting go of all that held tension, and I'm feeling kind of sexy and open, and let's go on with this. Or you could just enjoy the breathing and the moving.
Oh, thank you.
So that's my end around.
Sounds like you give good value to your clients. So, as we're coming to the end of our time together, let's tell our audience of how they can get in touch with you and how they can maybe book a session with you. And I know you do, go ahead, do your stuff. Because you only just give us the tip of the iceberg. There's iceberg that goes miles beneath the surface on this.
Excellent. Okay, so people can reach me through my website, which is called femininewisdom.com. That's FEMININE, wisdom, all one word. I can be contacted through my cell, which is area code 415-505-7230. And I offer a free 20-minute free consultation with people just to see if we're a right fit. So I'm not going to give up therapy or what I do, but just to know if I answer some questions and to set up the appointment or to make you feel comfortable with me, so that there's a free 20-minute consultation there. You can find me on Facebook. Feminine Wisdom is my working website. Lauridge is my personal website. They're a little bit different. I'm more into like the political things and just other interesting stuff that I put on my Lauridge. But on the Feminine Wisdom, it's tantric articles and articles around sexuality and sex education, that kind of thing. I can do Skype and sessions, and I'd like to offer for your listening audience. Normally I charge between $125 and $150 an hour, but I would offer your listeners a Sacred Sexuality coaching package for $300. So that's 3 one-hour sessions or 2 90-minute sessions via Skype or phone. And also, if you're any of your listeners would like to sponsor me to come to give a talk or to do a workshop or a weekend training or something like that, I would be willing to give you a free session, and you would attend the training for free. So I'm always looking for people to kind of help promote my business.
Okay, that's awesome. I absolutely love the tantric full body orgasm thing. So where do you teach that? Is that part of the workshop, or how
that can be done over the phone? To be able to do, or the Skype sessions. It's great to be done in workshop if there's people, because this orgasmic process, as I said, we're all connected energetically. So when one person gets it, it's like the energy flows to another person, and it kind of helps them get over that little hump that resistance that they may be having. So when you're in a group of, I've been in classes where all women are, and all women are in this orgasmic energy. It's pretty powerful and very exciting.
Wow. Okay. Well, you need to invite me to your next one.
Okay.
All right. Well, listen, Laurae, it has been a pleasure. We touched on a lot of things, and now I'm pretty sure that everybody's curious. So,
I hope so. And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I know, exactly, just the tip of the iceberg. So, I'm glad that they're able to go on your website and maybe get some more information, or even, book a session with you. It's not too much to learn this stuff, right? $300 for 3 sessions. It's a pretty good deal. All right, well, listen, I am glad that you've tuned in to our show today. As usual, I try to bring you things that would stimulate your mind so that you can live your best life now, make shifts in your consciousness, and to understand how to get the success that you desire or want in this world. And sexual energy is the premier force in doing that, whether you transmute it into creativity, whether you learn how to use it to enhance your personal relationships, but it is something that we need to be conscious of. And I'm one that's going to put my hand up that I need to understand the energy of I need to understand this energy force a whole lot more. So I'll definitely be tapping into Lorae's wisdom, by checking out her articles and maybe going to any of her sessions, if she's here or you're based out of California, correct?
I am in San Francisco, yes, but I do travel for private sessions.
Okay. All right. So, I might even, let's keep in touch so you can let me know when you're doing some workshops or seminars and things like that. I'll be happy to visit. All right.
Excellent.
Well, listen, thanks again, Laurae, for being on the show. It was a real pleasure, and maybe we'll have you back again to get below the iceberg a little bit.
Thank you. I'd be honored.
Yes. All right. So until next week, my audience, if you want to listen to any of my past shows, you can check them out on my YouTube channel, which is MyHelps, MyHelps. You can also get them on my video blog, which is on my website, which is MyrnaYoungHelps.com, MyrnaYoungHelps.com. If you want to be a guest on my show, just shoot me an email. My email is info@myhelps.us. Until next time, stay blessed. God loves you. And once again, thank you, Lorae. Have a good night. Bye.
Good night.